Terry Haines of Pangaea Policy weighing in on the negotiations, writing the following: liability reform is the linchpin to the bill. Republicans drawing a red line think it's essential to the economy. Democrats prefer national standards. There's a compromise there, but the issue will be one of the big cliffhangers. Terry Haines joins us now. Terry, walk me through that. You think this is going to be the issue that holds things up in the next couple of weeks. What's the compromise?
Well, I think the compromise, frankly, John, is a little bit of both. I think what you end up with is Democrats reluctantly agreeing to get some liability reforms passed in exchange for more money for state and local governments, that sort of thing, their priorities. And in return, there's some national standards that get put in place to provide people with a baseline. To my mind, politically, these concepts are being pushed by different sides, but they're not completely incompatible. So I think at the end of the day, some compromise on that is reached that allows everybody to move forward. But that'll be a lot of the theater over the last week or so of all this.
Terry, looking at the situation going forward from here, this payroll tax cut looks like a non-starter from my perspective. Is that yours too? It
is. It's. I've never really thought it is. It has any traction. The president talks about it off and on, and with different degrees of support. I don't see anybody on Capitol Hill that's willing to fall on their swords over it, and fundamentally that's why I think it doesn't happen. I subscribe to Kevin's view there a minute ago. If it's a failure, it's an opening bid for next year.
I thought that we would have more resistance over extending enhanced unemployment benefits. That's not the sense I get from the conversation at the moment, Terry. I imagine they want to taper them a little bit. How do you think the compromise evolves in the coming weeks on the size of those enhanced unemployment benefits?
Well, firstly, I think it's a little bit under what it is right now. I think that's very important to understand. There is a consensus, to some degree, a silent consensus, but a consensus that the current levels were disincentives for people going back to work, and that's key. I think it's a combination of two things: either extended unemployment benefits with a little bit of a haircut, or on the other hand, an idea that Democratic Senator Ron Wyden has been pushing, which is basically kind of a stair-step approach. As the unemployment rate continues to go down, so do the benefits. And there may be some combination there on that. You've got Senator Portman of Ohio and Ron Wyden, trying to work something out on this. And I think those are two very good guys to forge a compromise.
Terry, Secretary Mnuchin did so much over the previous few months to bring the two sides together. He really led the debate over stimulus. Who's leading now?
Well, I think Mnuchin still is, but I think it's important to understand that, and he's negotiating with the House, of course, on the side. But I think McConnell is. McConnell's working very hard and has been very transparent about pushing forward to try to get a consensus product out of the Senate. With as much consensus as possible, and then doing what the Senate always does, which is tries to impose its will on the House as far as the art of the possible goes. And as far as the number goes, which I agree with the prior discussion of this. As far as the number goes, I mean, the number is likely to be somewhere around $1.5 trillion, not just because that's the political and policy possible, as I've been saying for quite some time, but also you had Obama CEA head Furman on your air Monday, saying he thought that was what was economically necessary. And when you've got the policy, political, and economic all moving together, you're building a consensus.
Terry, did you sense that something has changed this week from the Republicans, from this administration? We heard from Senator Cruz earlier in the week, who's really worried about Texas getting flipped and turning blue. Then we saw the president alone there in that news conference at 5 p.m. Eastern yesterday, addressing the people of America, trying to take back control and control the message. Do you sense that shift as well?
What I sense is election year politics and people trying to play whack-a-mole with different problems. I don't think there's any real chance for Texas to go blue in any meaningful sense, whether it be presidential election or congressional delegations. But on the other hand, it behooves Senator Cruz to be careful about that sort of stuff. And, as far as the masking goes, I think the White House is bowing to reality. I mean, the consensus in the public is that we ought to do everything possible, including wearing masks. So, it doesn't behoove him any longer to put up much of a resistance on that, while at the same time saying people should be free to do what they want.